All right. Welcome to the November 19th, 2024 Finance Committee meeting. This is the Cumberland County Finance Committee's first meeting on the 25-26 budget year budget. Last night, the county commissioners heard the presentation of the budget and made a formal recommendation 5-0 to remand the budget to the Finance Committee for further review and for a recommendation coming back to them. So I offer those comments. First step I'd like to take to begin the process is to see if there is any nominations for chair of the Finance Committee moving forward.
Once again, I would nominate Dustin Ward for chair of the Finance Committee.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Any further nominations? Seeing none. All those in favor? Show the vote to be 4-0. Congratulations, Dustin.
Thank you.
Good.
It's like old times. Thank you.
So I will pass the agenda off to you.
Excellent. Well, first off, I'm excited to be back. New faces, returning faces, so really good. So as we sort of enter in, one thing we always ask too is public comment. Has there been any public comment that's been provided, Manager?
No, there has not.
All right. So before we begin, let's do just quick introductions, just so we know who we have in the room, especially since we've got some new folks. And I'll start. I'll pass it to my left. So name and where you're representing from. So Dustin Ward, Select Board Member out of New Gloucester.
Janice DeLima, I'm a councilwoman in Falmouth.
Bob Vale, I'm a town councilor from the town of Cumberland.
I'm Patricia Smith. I'm a county commissioner. My second year in. I represent Cape Elizabeth, South Portland, Westbrook, and a little bit of Portland. And I'm really glad to be here because I think this is important work and it helps connect us with towns and communities. So thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Alex Kimball, Deputy County Manager.
Jim McGaley, County Manager.
Teresa Grover, Finance Director.
Tim Thompson, Town Council member from Cape Elizabeth.
Thank you all. As we move forward, I'm excited to get to the presentation of our 2025-2026 budget. And as we sort of stated, we're here to sort of make recommendations as we move forward. So I'm sure if there's questions that come up, free flowing, we can ask it. But I'll turn it over to both of you to go ahead and present this year's budget for us.
Fantastic, thank you. This year, we are bringing forth the 2025-26 budget. I will start off like I started off last night and say that none of us are happy with the budget that we're bringing forth. This was a very difficult budget, and I believe we finished it around 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon, because we just needed to look at every line item. We needed to revisit revenues. We really scrutinized this budget over the last month and a half after working with department heads on their budgets, and it took some time. Hopefully, as I go through the slides, I will paint the picture of what this budget looks like, and show you the kind of the trials and tribulations that we had in developing this budget and kind of getting boxed in the corner a little bit with not a lot of alternatives to offset the impacts of the expenditures. So with that said, I'll jump into the budget. As always, I typically give a budget overview. We are proposing a 3% COLA for non-union. One thing I don't have up here is that we have 4 unions here in the county. We are negotiating all 4 contracts this year. We are currently negotiating our corrections officer contract down at the jail. We are just starting our communication dispatchers contract. And they're actually expiring January 1st. The correction officers don't expire until June. Just after the first of the year, we'll start in on the supervisors at the jail, and we also will do the sheriff's deputies contract. So a lot of work over the next 6 to 8 months on contracts. Our health insurance, as you probably have seen from your towns, if you're with Maine Municipal Employees Health Trust, or any insurer, there's quite a bit of impact this year on health insurance. And we're experienced on the higher side of Maine Municipal of 11%. The median for Maine Municipal was 9. There are some communities that will be 7, but we're falling on the higher side of things due to our ratio. This budget has 3 positions that I will go into justification for. A few years back, we went and transitioned from a calendar year budget to a fiscal year budget. We have done that for a variety of reasons. One, to match up with the town's budgeting process. The second is to have better cash flow. And the third was to no longer have to pull a tax anticipation note, saving significant dollars along the way. At that time, the county commissioners gave each town the opportunity to prorate their 6-month transition budget over a 5-year period. Many towns took that 5-year option, but many towns have also paid right up front. And some of the larger towns have paid off their entire 6-month obligation, allowing us to be way ahead of the schedule on eliminating the TAN. And this year, one of the bright spots of this budget is that we're no longer budgeting for a tax anticipation note. So that is, we've turned the corner, and we will no longer have to go through that process, saving this year $81,000. We are proposing a general obligation bond just under $4 million for 3 projects. We do have non-debt CIP, which is just under $300,000. We're using funds out of our tax stabilization reserve this year of $200,000, resulting in an impact on the tax rate or needs for taxes of 7.74%. What are some of the significant increases in this year's budget? Like I said, health insurance is up 11. We're up 15% in workers' comp. We're seeing significant increases in the IT on 2 different areas. The first is that, as many of you who use Adobe have realized that you don't buy the DVD anymore and you get 3 or 5 years out of that one purchase. You're buying it on an annual subscription now. This year, we're finding that many of the software companies that we use are going to a subscription service. And we're no longer signing 3 to 5 year contracts, which that 1-year subscription service is putting significant increases in our expenditures in the IT department. Another significant increase is that the area communities have gone into body cams. They've been very popular. Some of our larger communities in the county have turned and put body cams on their police officers. The sheriff's office has done the same. All the body cam footage gets downloaded to the district attorney's office, and we have found that we are quickly running out of server space, and we continue to have to buy more server modules or whatever you buy in the world of servers. And so we have had to shift gears and go into a different platform for purchasing server space, and that is a cost of $47,000 because of all that body cam footage that the DA's office needs to hold. So big ticket items there in the IT office. Next, I was talking about body cams. We've had body cams for now going on to 3 years. The first 2 years we had body cams, they were paid for through a grant. This year it's going to show up on the tax rate. And so there's $66,000 there to cover our annual contract for that. Our risk pool insurance is going up 15%. The state of Maine has set a new price for appointed attorneys in our probate court. It doubled the hourly rate, and so that's a $75,000 impact. Our sheriff's office is seeing a significant increase in the purchase of vehicles that probably your departments are seeing also. Fit-up costs of new vehicles have gone out of sight. Big increase there. And so that line item is up over $100,000. We're reinstating 11 salaries in the jail. Back in 23-24, we had a jail budget model, as many of you, Dustin and Bob may remember, that we needed the right size. That was even a request of the Finance Committee the year prior to right-size this budget, because it was not reflecting of what the status or the characteristics of the jail were that year. And so we did that, and we didn't cut the positions, we just unfunded the positions.
Is this increase reflecting federal prisoners coming back?
Yes, it's a combination of the federal prisoners coming back, the need, the additional inmates that when we unfunded the positions, we had 220 inmates, now we have 370 inmates. And we are being very successful on hiring for the first time in a number of years. So we are seeing the need to fund some additional positions within the jail. We are also created a public health office that is doing yeoman's work throughout the county. And that was heavily used with ARPA funds over the last couple of years, and ARPA funds are running out. And we need to move some of that cost that is not covered by grants into the general fund budget. And that is a tune of $163,000. Just taking a second and talk a little bit about the positions. The first position is an administrative training assistant at the sheriff's office. Like I just said, we have been very successful on hiring corrections officers and sheriff's deputies. However, our training capacity and onboarding capacity is not up to the level that we need because of the influx of new employees. We have a very young staff at the jail. The majority of the jail employees are under 3 years of tenure. And we feel the need that we have to, if we're going to continue to move in the direction of hiring the bodies that we're hiring, we need to add the capacity in that arena to appropriately train not only the new employees coming in, but we have a number of existing employees that need annual training also. So it is a staff position that we're proposing to add to the training department down there. It is a staff position to offset the budget impact. It's being proposed for January of 2026 versus a full year starting this coming July. We will build the other 6 months in the following year, the 26-27 budget, to have a 12-month position there. The civil division is a division that serves legal documents. We have a number of things going on in the civil division. The first is we have been seeing a substantial increase in documents needing to be served, and the department is, last I heard, over 300 documents behind on serving. We have had for many years a 3 employees. They were per diem in nature. And for the last number of years, we have been working towards getting those per diem employees into a part-time role, as the per diem does not meet the Department of Labor standards. And so we need to make that move. And then lastly, we have a lot of long-standing full-time division, civil division employees who are retiring. With all that, it's creating a perfect storm within the office, but we need to add some capacity over and above what we have today on the sheer fact that we're seeing an increase in demand for deliveries of certain types of papers. Lastly, we're proposing a fire EMS coordinator. This has gelled out of conversations with town managers and fire chiefs over the last year and a half to 2 years. We have done a regional study of fire EMS collaboration, which didn't rise to the level of what we would have all liked in a study. However, through the interest of the town managers and fire chiefs, they didn't want to let the ball drop, and they wanted to continue to meet. So the county has convened meetings over the last 6 months, talking about what needs to be done or what the chief's needs are to help on a regional model. And just 3 weeks ago, we met with over 30 individuals from town managers and fire chiefs throughout the county on a strategic planning session that was held out in Cumberland's Town Hall. Actually, was it? No, where? Valhalla, that's where it was. I knew it was in Cumberland.
That person would be good for something eventually.
And we met, it was a facilitated process by Craig Freshley, and I have put a draft report in front of you this evening to show the conversations. I will preface that your town managers and fire chiefs haven't even seen this draft. We just received it, and it is still in red line version, but it will show that the consensus of the group, and the county employees did not have any vote in this. It was town managers and fire chiefs driven, that they felt as though a regional coordinator being staffed by the county would be the #1 priority for the region. To be able to initiate collaborative trainings through departments for firefighter 1, firefighter 2, EMS or EMT trainings, joint policy writing, joint grant writing, collaboration on bulk purchasing of turnout gear or fire hose, items like that. The hiring of this position, I have told the fire chiefs that they're the professionals in this and that I'm going to rely on them to do the hiring. We will sit in on the hiring just because it will be a county employee, but the fire chiefs will be making the recommendation on this position. That is the third and last position that we will be proposing within this budget. Yes.
I'm glad the fire chiefs are gonna be in on the interviewing process because,
Is your mic on?
Janice, sorry.
You gotta hold it down. There you go. Yep.
No, I turned it on because of crunches. I'm really glad to hear that the fire chiefs are going to be involved in the hiring process and interviewing process, so we get the right candidate in the position. This position, as well as some other position that I noticed in the package that you sent out, had a fundraising aspect or applications for grants, so sort of coordinating those sorts of applications. That's so important, and rising in importance as well, because a lot of our towns are having difficulty coming up with these funds of money, and if it's available through the federal government or other sources, that'll be helpful. Do we track how effective that aspect of these positions are? In other words, are we looking back and sort of saying, oh, we were thinking we'd raise $2 million collectively or whatever, some kind of target, and did we actually do that? Because that's the easy one to fall down on, having training sessions and, you set up a schedule and it just happens. But actually researching and being effective in, attracting grants is a whole different thing, and I think it's becoming more and more important across the board, not just in the fire, but also, storm protections, et cetera. So just curious if there's a way to sort of come back annually and sort of say, how did we do in this aspect of that position?
Absolutely, and the case study I can provide you this evening is our public health office. Our public health office, we hired our director with ARPA funds. to get the ball off the ground. And we hired a fantastic individual, and she took the reins and ran with it and really built a public health office. And we joke, she was flying the airplane while building it. We can take a look at what we're bringing in for grants to offset. We now have 10 employees in that office. The office was just created 3 years ago. And so through receiving a number of grants, receiving opioid settlement funds that we're applying towards their efforts, we can look at the public health office and say, yes, there are benchmarks, there is success here. That's what we would, a very similar model that we would have with this fire chief's position. And so I think we do have a case study right within our organization that we can do that. And like I said earlier, our public health office in this budget is costing us $163,000, but we are spending upwards of $2 million a year in that office. And it's all being covered by grants and opioid funds.
And the only other point I want to bring up is I got a look at the survey that was done a few years ago, and one thing I thought it missed, and to your point, it wasn't as to the level we were expecting, but one thing I thought it missed was, an inventory of what is the fire EMT equipment like across our region? What do we have? How many water trucks and ladder trucks, and I think that's kind of important for us if we are going to do more collaboration regionally. Let's get a handle on how much.
Absolutely.
The head count is clearly, we're lacking in many communities, but the equipment, which is huge sums of money, don't really have a good sense of that. So is that something maybe this person would take on? And
Yes, and we already have that information because our emergency management agency meets monthly with the fire chiefs, and one of the things that they have at their hands are all the apparatus that we have throughout the county. Where are the pumper trucks, where are the ladder trucks, where are the off-road vehicles for woods fires, things like that. The EMA office has that, and they're constantly updating that. So that resource is there. In the report that was completed over the last 2 years, there was the delineation of where all the fire stations are throughout the county, both full-time and part-time volunteer stations. So we do have kind of like that baseline documentation that you were just mentioning.
And is it your expectation that we'll use that information now to say, here's the standard, where are we over and where are we under, and then how do you fill in the gaps?
Yeah, because, one of the biggest things that we hear a lot is, does every town need a ladder truck?
Yeah.
They aren't giving those things away anymore. And, some towns, I came from a community that, my previous community, we have 3 ladder trucks, or had 3 ladder trucks. And, we see then the next door neighbor buy one, and it's like, we're that close. But that's one of the things that's getting very expensive, and it's been on the front burner of a lot of conversations.
Good.
If I may, Jim, I just want to, and while Patricia's sitting here, this is more kind of geared to her ears than anyplace else. It's incumbent upon us to take this to Public Works also, with this regional coordinator. I mean, it's, you talk about training. We shouldn't be training somebody how to drive a backhoe. We should be doing that as a county mechanism. We should be doing that as a regional mechanism. And, the same thing follows through for police departments. Training days ought to be shared across communities. I know Janice and I are on the same page here, but this idea can't just stop here. We need and that's half the reason why I wanted to be on this budget committee again, is to reiterate these concepts, these principles of shared services and combined services across the board. And, what I've said, I don't care if you have a 7% budget increase. Show me how you can save me that 7% in my community. There's justification or greater savings. I'm all for this regional fire quarter, but the idea being is that there's going to be some savings down the road.
Yeah.
Or
Some income.
or along with the savings possibilities, some enhancement in the whole process, better training. So I'm all in favor of spending money when there can be improvements as well, so.
Certainly that need for the better coordination of the training and better was really high on their lists. Huge part of it for them, just keeping that coordinated improvement.
I'll just make one comment, I think, too, is when I served on this, at a city as well, a lot of times you heard about mutual aid, like, that's a big part of fire, folks, when they're close communities, there's always that mutual aid, we're there if you need us, and I love that about towns in Maine, it feels like we try to work together, and I think we have that, already that philosophy of mutual aid, and why don't we come together in this capacity, too, it feels like it's the right next step.
Right. Doesn't mean we all have to have the same piece of apparatus and, street sweepers. We could share a street sweeper between a couple communities.
Talked a little bit about the budget impacts already. One thing that I haven't talked about that's on this slide is we're all subject to this, and that's the main paid family medical leave. That's going to kick in this January, where employers are going to have to pay 0.5% of an employee's salary, and the employee is going to have to pay 0.5% into this fund. That doesn't become active until May of 2026. So there's a little ramp-up period here, but we have to start budgeting for it now. We budgeted in this year 6 months' worth, so this proposed budget is the other 6 months for a full year. Actually, it's the full year, because we budgeted for the first 6 months in this year's budget, starting January 1st. Increase in probate office and the district attorney's office is state mandated, so we have very little wiggle room there. I think I've touched upon other things. So getting a little bit deeper into the jail positions, bringing back 9 correction officers and 2 sergeants. Back in 2023-24, we unfunded 48 positions total. 42 positions in correction officers. That was 42 positions out of 128 that we have. We have unfunded 3 sergeants' positions, and we had, I believe, 16 sergeants at that time. 2 community program officers and a records clerk. And like I said previously, the jail population was 220. We were in a time that if we were lucky to hire someone to be a corrections officer, there was a 50-50 chance whether that person would still be employed with us 6 months later. And so we were really treading water on employment and trying to build up our correction officer staff. However, over the last year, we've really hit our stride. We've put a lot of energy and employee hours into recruiting. We've streamlined some processes to really keep the applicant enticed into joining our ranks. And we're now seeing the fruits of the labor. We are also seeing a significant increase in our jail population. And we're averaging, I would estimate, somewhere in the 365 inmate range right now. It drops down to 350. It's been as high as 390. But I think the sweet spot is somewhere in that 365, 370. So we've brought back federal inmates. We have approximately, I heard last night, 45 federal inmates. And that's a good thing, because that's a revenue from the federal government to offset there. But we also have to open up a single pod for them. In the past, we've been able to mix them with our general population inmates, but now the federal government's requiring their own pod down there, which requires their own staffing of that pod. So it is a little bit of stress, but we're hoping that through the efforts of recruiting, and I heard last night that by the end of this year, we could be upwards of 20 new employees over the last 2 or 3 months. So that's a great thing. So there is a need to start bringing back some of these positions that were unfunded 2 years ago.
Can I ask a question on that? Are we, is the county statutorily required to have a jail?
It's not statutory required, but we need to have someplace to bring our inmates. So if we didn't have our own jail, we would be in some kind of district, for instance. Like there's a regional jail up in Wiscasset that is called Two Bridges Regional Jail. That is Saginaw County and Lincoln County. We have had conversations with York County over the years to see whether the both of us could join efforts. The Cumberland County Jail is actually closer to the York County Courthouse than the York County Jail to the York County Courthouse. Because the courthouse is now in Biddeford, and so it's just a quick hop on the turnpike and we're there. However, the populations of both the York County inmates and Cumberland County exceed the capacity of any one jail. We really have about a capacity of about 450 inmates at our jail. Even though they publish 500, we don't have the capabilities of housing 500. York County's running somewhere in the 230, 240. We're up at 370, and so we're exceeding the capacity of any one jail. So the dance partner between York and Cumberland County is not there.
Conceivably, if we were to put an add-on or have a, I don't know, a different building,
Absolutely.
and where I'm going is, clearly hiring people to manage this population is also a cost. There's certainly the bricks and mortar, but the staffing, and the more we can consolidate, if we're not statutorily required. And then also, when I think about your point about Biddeford being, 20-minute drive from here, Lewiston Auburn, 40 minutes, and an easy drive at that too. And so I just have to wonder about how do we, scale up in other aspects too, not just town by town, but even county by county.
For the past year, we've had Oxford County inmates in our jail. Oxford County has been doing renovations to their jail, air handling, fire alarm systems, things like that. And so they've had to board out their inmates. And so we've had anywhere from a low of 10 to as high as 30 Oxford inmates at our jail. I believe they're there for maybe another 30 or 60 days, and then they will be moving back into their jail. I know York County's been housing Oxford inmates. Two Bridges is housing Oxford inmates. So there are a lot of sharing like that when need arises. Like I said, we have a full pod of just federal inmates, and we're one of the few jails that have federal inmates. I believe it's us and Two Bridges might be holding some federal inmates at this time.
We have eliminated one of the things that in the past has, well, we will in a few months have eliminated. One of the things that in the past was also eliminated was we had a very undersized medical unit at the jail relative to the population. It was built in the 1990s. We're in the middle of renovating that using ARPA funds and building on an additional expansion, which will mean that we'll have adequate medical facility. In the past, really the jail couldn't add anything more due to the limitations of that very outdated medical. So that's one thing towards that goal eventually we're doing now.
Along that line, what do we keep for staff, medical staff on a 24/7 basis?
Oh, I really should have that number on the tip of my tongue. So for starters, we outsource that to a company called Armor Correctional. Most bigger jails tend to outsource their medical staff. There's just no earthly way for us to have the expertise to manage that. On any given day, it's usually, I think, a staff of 4 or 5. It's about a 16-person staff totally, obviously, to cover the shifts, a wide variety of positions, a number of positions, and this is a big part of why outsourcing works. It's not like they have a full-time dentist. They have a dentist who shows up, say, 1 day a week and does rounds at the various jails. Similarly, some of the mental health professionals. So it's a real full suite of services, which is one of the reasons why outsourcing it works much better. But it's pretty big staff for obvious reasons. That's a massive change that's occurred at the jail where the medical care, is, the requirement is so much higher than it used to be.
Because of the aging of the population, or?
Nature of the inmates coming in. Not so much aging, unfortunately.
Substance use, mental disorders, things like that. We, like I may mention too, we have scrubbed as much revenues as we feel appropriate moving forward. The commissioners back in September approved staff's recommendation for our parking garage fee increase. So there'll be some new fees associated with that. We also are moving 40 to 45 employees out of this building come maybe March or April of next year. We are currently under construction of a new administrative building for county government over off from Washington Avenue. If you know where WGME is, in that shopping plaza, the county purchased a 32,000 square foot office building there using ARPA funds. And we are using ARPA funds for renovation of that building currently. So we will be moving into that, all offices in this building, with the exception of our probate court and our district attorney's office, who need to stay in this building. So that is spaces in the parking garage that we will be able to lease out for monthly parkers or have daily rates there. So we're feeling as though $100,000 is a good starting point for new revenue. The civil division, like I said, we're seeing an increase in delivery of papers, which brings in fees, so we feel as though $140,000 increase in revenues there. That, in a sense, covers the employee cost being proposed. The sheriff's office, the jail, federal borders, we currently, in this budget, are budgeting $1.7 million. We feel as though we can add to that and jump that up towards $2.3 million. And so we're adding just over $550,000 of new revenue in the coming budget.
Can I just, what is federal borders? What is that?
Federal borders are federal arrests through the Marshal Service, or they can be arrests through immigration, ICE. And so they typically have 1 or 2 locations within every state to hold federal prisoners. And they, instead of coming to this building to be arraigned and for court proceedings, they go next door to the federal building.
And not to sort of jump the gun, but given what we're hearing in terms of the increase in that activity, is that why you feel like instead of $500,000?
No, we're really basing it on numbers that we see today. We are seeing the same reports as you. But there's a lot of unknowns there, and we really can't bake a hypothetical number into the budget at this point. But this is going to be something that the jail budget as a whole will be a work in progress over the next couple of months.
I think the jail happens to sit in a very convenient location for them. They don't have a place where they can house inmates anywhere near the courthouse here. So for the federal government, it's a good solution for them.
Probate court fees are up $75,000, and that kind of covers the $75,000 increase that we're seeing on the attorney's fees in the probate court. And the district attorney's fees are up $20,000. One thing I should make mention is that different from a municipality, the county has very limited resources in terms of revenue generation. We don't have the various building permits and permits out of your code enforcement office. We don't have the city or town clerk permits or licensing that you all have. And so our bucket of revenues, as you'll see in the budget, it's probably a half to maybe a third compared to what a municipality can raise through external revenues to offset their budget. Now we go into a number of the numbers, getting a little into the weeds. Our first slide here is total expenditures. This slide's showing that the county expenses, which is the general fund expense, is going to be up just over $2.2 million. Our jail expenses are up just over $2.1 million. And our cross-insurance arena expenses are down just over $54,000. So those are our three budgets. They're all three independent budgets. They come together through the budgeting process for the end result of a needs from taxes. So you will see them together on this spreadsheet, but we'll be breaking them out in subsequent spreadsheets. So the total expenses proposed in this budget is $4.3 million, or a 6.22% increase in expenditures over the current year budget. Diving into the jail expenses, here is the top is our revenues that we can bring in. The state funding is up $350,000 over the current year. Our federal borders, we're proposing, again, just over $550,000 worth of new money. County borders, we're estimating zero. And other revenues are around $2,000. For a total of $902,000 worth of new revenues in the jail, offset by $2.1 million in jail expenses. We have a jail's needs from taxes of $1.277 million. That is an 8% increase in the jail. I'm going to pause here for a second and just talk a little bit about state statute has a cap on jail budgets of new money. That cap is 4% that counties need to live by. We're, in a sense, through this budget, doubling the cap. It's our understanding to do so. It is a special vote by the county commissioners to exceed the cap. We can't exceed the cap every single year, and as Dustin and Bob know, we've never proposed exceeding the cap before, but this budget's like no other that we've had to present in my 8 years here. We are proposing an 8% increase in the jail expenses, just because of the factors that we have outlined thus far.
Can I ask, what is the state funding based on?
This-
How do they allocate?
It is our population, our in the
capita?
jail, so
Oh.
they take all the county's population numbers and divide it out, the state funding by population. Typically, we range from anywhere from 18 to 20% of the statewide population in jails. We've dipped into the 17s in the past couple of years, 15.
We got as low as 15.
Which, that was probably the year that we had to unfund a number of positions. And so now with this $350,000 of new money means that we're now getting back into that 18-19% range of the jail population statewide.
And the reason I'm probing this a little bit more is, that 8% is just staring us right in the face. And if we're experiencing more mental health kind of challenges in the prison, and you read about this all the time, then shouldn't the state be responsible for a little bit more, because we're not giving services at the right level, and so then we're housing people in hospitals and jails? And is there some pushback on that across the state, or?
We go with our hat in hand every year to the state legislature, trying to get an increase in state revenue. Much like towns go for state revenue sharing dollars, the county's state revenue sharing, in a sense, is jail, DOC funds. We were successful a couple of years ago in getting some more money, but we have had a flat increase over the last 2 years. This past year, the state did put about $2 million extra in for the counties, but it was to be spent towards opioid use mitigation within the county jails. So we, I believe, received about $400,000 of opioid funds for our jail, but it doesn't go towards the general operations of the jail.
And this year's not going to be any easier. What you hear, they've got fewer funds up there this year than they had last year, so good luck with that.
Yeah, we've already been told not to come.
Leave your hat at home.
Yeah, we've already made the ask back in July before the state started putting together their budget, and DOC said, don't even ask, don't even waste your time, we're not going to be looking at anything, and the governor's office is not looking at anything. So it's going to be another year of flat funded, probably another 2 years because it's a biennium budget. There's not going to be any appetite of new expenditures. Cross-insurance arena, this budget is, really there's two budgets to the cross-insurance arena. This is the budget that impacts the general fund, or the tax rate. And it is broken down into principal and interest of, and this is based on the 2012 referendum that was voted through by county residents for the renovations to the cross-insurance arena. And so we are seeing this as a number that's going to constantly be going down now. We're kind of hit that plateau, and now we're sliding down. The prior debt, when we took over full operations of the cross-insurance arena in 2017 by state statute, the trustees had taken out a number of small bonds over the period of time that we needed to absorb. And so this prior debt is really a bunch of probably 3 or 4 small bonds of $2 million, $4 million, $6 million. And so that we're continuing to pay that off. We haven't taken any debt on the cross-insurance arena since buying a scoreboard back in, I think, 2017, 2016. Operationally, we'll be up $32,000 just because we are seeing an increase in activity in the arena at this point. And we do have some management obligations through contractual obligations to our management company that oversees the arena for us. But that also that line also includes an increase in insurances for the arena and other items that does not fall within the general operating budget of the cross-insurance arena. That's the second budget that gets developed, and that is a budget that gets developed in March, April, and is overseen by the trustees, and ultimately the county commissioners approve it in June. But that has no bearing on the tax rate. That is pretty much an estimation of what they feel that the arena is going to have for Mariners games, Mariner playoff games, different types of acts coming into the arena, and an estimation of what the revenues would be, and then the revenues meet the expenditures. Or a lot of times we deficit spend for a while, and we go in that format. It's a straight-up enterprise account. I will say that the 23-24 budget was proposed at a negative $580,000 when it was approved by the county commissioners. And when we finished up in June 30th of this year, the arena made over $700,000. So they turned a $580,000 deficit into a $700,000 profit. They had one hell of a year up there. We're looking for another good year this year. And the management group, led by the general manager, is doing a phenomenal job bringing in different acts. And the Mariners having a lot of butts in seats pays off too. And so they're doing well, and hopefully another good season for them.
Just a quick question, Jim.
Yeah.
In the remote case of a budget shortfall, where does that money come from?
That comes from us. Yep.
So conversely, if you have an overage, are you able to set that aside in our account and build on it for capital expenses, reserve funds? Or do you-
One of the nice things that Teresa was able to do was to suck a couple $100,000 out of their account this year and put it into our general fund. We did have some construction that we had in the arena this summer, which we had to go dark in July and the first 2 weeks of August. So we had to cover some expenses there. But that was because we had some seat renovations being done. We changed the hockey rink. If you've ever noticed, the benches were always on the wrong side of the ice. And so we have all new dashboards and glass, and we moved the benches over to the Spring Street side where the locker rooms are, where they were supposed to be back in 1977, but they opted to design it backwards. So we had a period of time that we were dark. So we ate into some of the profits just because we needed to make expenses for 6 weeks.
So a school or an SAD is limited by the amount of money that they can carry in reserve, whereas a community, and South Poland is probably the poster boy for that one, you know, they carry 20% of.
Come on, Bob.
Well,
gonna tell
Cumberland
you
finally
secrets.
was able to get to 12%, and so is the county constrained by having a capital reserve? It's not a capital reserve fund, that's not the right word.
We have a fund balance policy.
Unbound, you do, okay.
Yes.
What's the limit?
20%. Yep.
And a lot of times, fund balance policies are nice, and they could be 10 or 12%, but when you're trying to pull a general obligation bond, the bonding companies are going to say, hey, we want more than 12%. It's a lot of times it's 16 to 20%.
Well, it allowed Cumberland not to have a TAN or a tax, we didn't have to have any TAN anymore because we had that money to, you know.
Sorry, I'll never stop doing that.
I think Alex was referring that he was there when
Yeah,
that
right,
happened, yeah.
exactly.
So,
Noted.
So combining all three budgets, the general fund budget, the jail budget, and the cross-insurance arena budget, we're seeing a total needs from taxes at just over $3 million, and here's that 7.74% increase. Other areas of the budget that impact the general fund side, these are contributions to outside agencies that we have on an annual basis. By state statute, we have to provide funding to the Cumberland County Extension Service. We, a number of years ago, combined a number of nonprofit grants into a single line item, and we funnel our funds through Thrive 2027, which is, in a sense, a division of the United Way. And they distribute the money for us now, and there's greater accountability and benchmarking that is done through their system that wasn't being done here at the county.
Given the merger with York County's United Way, are they allocating the funds into Cumberland?
Yes, they ask us every year where we want our allocation to go into the three goals of Thrive 2027, and we can direct where that money goes.
And keeping it in nonprofits and
Cumberland County, yeah. Through state statute, we have to provide contribution to the Cumberland County Soil and Water, so that's our annual contribution. The Portland Public Library, we contribute $10,000 to. Why Portland and not another library? Portland Library is structured that they will give a library card to anyone in Cumberland County. And because of that, we contribute to some capital items for them on an annual basis.
I think our library does that too. Anyone can come in and open a library card. It's not limited to, but Portland provides a lot of services.
And then we provide a small amount of money to the Tedford House, which is a homeless shelter up in the Brunswick area, which, through our opera funds, we contributed up almost $2 million towards their new shelter it's currently under construction, up past Cook's Corner.
Can I ask, what's the county extension service? What does that refer to?
That is, another name for it is the Humane Extension Service. They do agricultural work. They do a lot of master gardener classes. They do the 4-H club. It's really focused on gardening, farming, livestock, plants, vegetables, things like
Food
that.
incubator type
Food inc-
classes.
Oh, I see.
So it's like really taking the most of the agricultural state that we are all living in within Cumberland County, and the Cumberland Fair is one of their big fundraising efforts when they have a Cumberland. So it's all around like food preservation, resiliency, and things like that.
And just going back to that previous slide, so when you talk about using the ARPA funds, that's from a different pool, right? That's from a
Yes.
fund balance, so it's not through the P and L.
Correct.
So the Tedford 15,000, should it be included in this contribution list, if we've been pulling it out of ARPA?
No, this has been a allocation that we've given Tedford for the
Over
last
what?
number of years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the ARPA funds, I made mention of that just to show the relationship the county has with Tedford House. ARPA funds is on a whole different balance sheet outside of any of these numbers here.
Good, thank you.
Under our debt, capital, and TAN, we do have past and future principal debt being proposed here, as well as interest, for combined about $293,000. Our capital reserve this year, which is, I previously mentioned as a non-debt CIP, that's down $77,000. And we are no longer needing a tax anticipation note, which that 121 there should be 81,000. So that's a savings of $81,000. So our total debt, capital, and TAN together is just over $135,000 in need.
And the ARPA funds, everything has been used up as of now, correct? Everything is either contracted or obligated?
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah,
there's nothing,
we-
you don't have to worry about any of that end of year.
We will have to go to the commissioners in December and just do some housekeeping to firm things up before the December 31st deadline. But we're in good shape. We have a lot of projects underway, a lot of projects that have finished. So everything needs to be locked down December 31st for the next 2 years, or you lose it.
Oh, I know, that's why I was, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Do we ever publish what we spent the money on?
Yeah.
At a county level? So is it in a budget, or is it sort of published as a newspaper?
It's on our webpage.
On the webpage?
Yep.
I'll go check it out, thank you.
We received $58 million. And my personal opinion, I think we spent it in a very balanced approach. We took care of some county needs in terms of capital costs and infrastructure costs, but we also sent a lot of money outside of these walls into the communities and into the nonprofits that made substantial capacity building for towns and the nonprofits in our region. So the three capital items that we have, if I did give you kind of a list. I couldn't find our 5-year plan, which was done probably 7 years ago, that we've been going by, but this is a list of projects that was put together by our previous facilities director, and we have kind of been living by this on the larger projects that we've been spearheading. And I took the opportunity in the red to kind of update this, just to give you an understanding of what has been done, what is ongoing, and what has been canceled. And my purpose for this is that to show that the jail roof back in 2019 was on this for $800,000. The history of the jail roof is that I've been here 8 times, and I think we've bonded for it for 3 times. But there's always been a project that has popped up that we've had to reallocate the jail roof money to this project. The most recent was the bond that we pulled not this past summer, the summer before, that we also had a brand-new door locking system at the jail in that bond. Well, the bids came in way over price of what we had allocated, and so we actually had to move and deplete the jail roof for the third time into the door locking system at the jail, because we felt as though that was a greater priority to move forward than the jail roof. Knock on wood, we have exceeded our life expectancy of that roof down there. We haven't had all that many problems, but we continue to have G&R Roofing talk to us about needing to get something done before we do have problems. So, once again, we are putting in the jail roof. We're hoping that it sticks this time and that we actually do some work on the roof, and that we're not going to have a project pop up on us. But we feel as though we have a good handle on our large capital projects. Our garage renovation project, and I meant to provide you that report, and I can email that out to you. We had an independent engineering firm go through our parking garage next door about 2 years ago and provide us an assessment report. And they also gave us a game plan on what should be done first phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase. We probably have upwards of $3 million worth of improvements that we need to have done in that garage. And this year, we are just finishing up in the next couple of weeks our first phase. So this money would be the second phase of improvements that would probably begin starting in the spring of 2026. And then lastly, the courthouse windows. These are the windows here. If you were in this room earlier today when the wind was blowing 25, 30 miles an hour right at this face of the building, all of our district attorney staff were coming down the hallways with their jackets because it was way too cold in here. And so I think the R value of these windows is not all that good. And when we were negotiating our lease with the state, the county owns the entire complex here. We lease the state judicial their space here. And when I was negotiating that lease with state judicial about 2 or 3 years ago, one of the things that they put into the lease was the requirement of us that we needed to do some capital improvements on this side, the windows being one of them, the HVAC being the other. We are undergoing the HVAC work right after the first of the year. That's already been approved by the commissioners. The windows are in need now. The nice thing about it is that our monthly payments from the state have a small contribution to a general obligation bond for the windows and the HVAC. So they are contributing a portion of the funds into the capital expenditure. The $800,000 we feel is probably going to be a first phase of a two-phase approach. As this side gets the north wind, we will be focusing on replacing all the windows on this side, and the second phase will be the opposite side of the building.
How long do those contracts with the state run? Are they 10-year, 5-year?
The previous ones were 20 years apiece. This one, I believe, if I remember, it might be 10 years with 5-year renewals. And this contract also has, unlike the other ones, we have escalator clauses built in for not only the rent, but also capital needs.
And I should have asked this earlier, but are we 100% back to work at the county, or
Yes.
are some jobs still?
We do have some jobs on a hybrid in and out fashion, and that's only because we don't have any space for extra desks. We've run out of space, hence why we've had numerous space needs studies over the last 20 years, and finally, because of ARPA, we've been able to do something about it and buy that new building. That will bring everyone in, and we'll be able to consolidate We rent space down in the Old Port, which is not cheap, as you can imagine. We have our Registry of Deeds and our Regional Assessing Program down in a building on the corner of Pearl Street and 4th Street. We have our Public Health Office in a building between Pearl Street and Milk Street, down near the Regency. Those 3 departments will be coming over to the new building with us, and we are currently trying to sublease that space because we have about a year and a half left on that lease down there. So we're hoping to sublease it for that period of time. We also have a 5-year option after that, too. So we'll see. We have Bullis working on that for us. And then I thought, just because of the increase this year, I just wanted to give the committee kind of an idea of where the county budget usually falls out. We're usually in that 4% range. We did dip down to 1.2% during the COVID year. We did jump over the 5% mark in our first full fiscal year. But as you can see, that 6-month budget was a negative 52%. So we were operating 6 months on 48%. So, you know, I would say that 5%, there was some growing pains on transitioning budgets there. But we're typically in that 4 to 5% range. But I thought it would be beneficial for you to all see where we've landed since 2018.
Is that something you can provide us, Jim, or do I need to, is that in here somewhere?
It is not in there, but I'd be happy to email you the slide deck.
Okay, thanks.
With that said, that concludes my presentation. If there are any further questions on the budget, I'd be happy to answer, or Teresa and Alex can jump in too.
Questions from this group? And I'll just say thank you, as always. Amazing presentation. I really appreciate the diligence that your team put together. So, I know, harder budget for me to see, but I definitely appreciate the work. So, any questions from this group?
You covered this in the first comments that you made, Jim, but you talked about this tax stabilization reserve. And what, is that a fund balance and that we tap into when we're trying to not pass on quite as high a price tag to the?
Yes, back in the COVID times, we saw that we were, we had a pretty good year-end fund balance because we weren't spending the money that was in the budget. And at that time, we also felt as though we needed to have a reserve account to reuse that money and push down the tax rate. And so Alex, at the time, had developed a game plan to take a good slug of that year-end fund balance and create a tax stabilization account that was had an end game to it, so that it tiered itself down. So we were weaning ourselves off from this account over years, so that we weren't just creating a gigantic hole in the budget year over year. And so this is an effort to continue that process, and we feel as though there's enough money in there that we can contribute $200,000 out of that account into this. And then next year, it will probably be $150,000. The year after that, it will be $100,000. The year after that, $50,000, and then $0. So we're weaning ourselves off, so it's not a gigantic impact in any one budget.
And how did we decide on the amount for this year? Because the 7%, you know, it's pretty high relative to our previous tax rates. Could we have done a little bit more, or was that like too aggressive? Or
We have that plan, so it depends on. You know, if we put more in, we'll have a steeper cliff on a next year or the year after. We only have so much money, and we're not having the fund balances like we used to have back in COVID. We're almost right there on revenues and expenditures every year. Actually, we lost money this year because of the jail. We were about $700,000 in the hole on the jail. So, you know, we're not capitalizing that account, so what we have in it is what we have in it. And to be able to tear it down over the next 3 or 4 years, so we don't have any one year being a steep cliff, we felt as though the $200,000 was the appropriate amount.
And so in that same vein, though, do we have a forward look on some of the bigger capital costs, capital expenditures? You know, we have the jail roof, but do we sort of budget out over the next 5 years, oh, we're gonna have to do X, Y, and Z, so that we can have a view of what's coming down the pike at us, that unavoidable? And is
Last
that-
page.
The last page. okay.
Last page,
Didn't look
top.
at the last page.
We build that out over 3 to 5 years. I would say that after what we have in this general obligation bond, where we need to focus our attention is continuing the garage, Phase 2 of the window project of this building, and the biggest item that we're looking at is the roof of the roof of the old courthouse. It's all the slate shingles, and it's a scary number. However, we are moving towards a full assessment of all of our assets over the next 6 months, and so we're going to have an assessment report that's going to look at every single building that we have, every single mechanical, structural, everything, and they're going to give us an assessment report that we can justify future expenditures in the capital on. And it will give us a roadmap on what are our priorities moving forward. Where do we have to spend our money first?
Thanks.
Talk about the sheriff for just a second. Last year, they wanted a technical position, which the name of it escapes me now.
Yeah, it's the computer forensics.
Yes.
Good memory.
Is that in this year, or is it still on?
I cut it. They proposed it, and I still think it's someday a viable, but when I can only bring so many positions, and I had to justify, and with the sheriff's office needing the civil division person, and the training was top priority, the forensic person kind of fell off.
The next question is about the cars and patrol cars. Are we gaining any place towards getting the senior staff away from a patrol car and getting them into a regular car and just getting the patrol people, the top-line cars?
Well, the patrol people always get the top-line cars. When we buy cars, they get pushed out to the districts and the deputies. The command staff tend to fit themselves out in not the oldest vehicles in the fleet, but if one's rolling off with 75,000 miles, it might go down to the command staff, but they're not getting brand-new vehicles. And I will say that it has been a few discussions over the past year between the sheriff's office and the county commissioners on that very topic.
Again, we've had this conversation in Cumberland with rescue vehicles, and Danny Small wanted, a $500,000 ambulance, and I said, what is the standardization of this? Oh, none. It's custom. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. We're hiring per diem ambulance drivers, ambulance EMTs. A ambulance should be standardized so that anybody who works as an EMT can go to the same shelf on any given piece of apparatus in the state and reach. Is there ways to take that same standardization to the police cars? I know you're running Chevy Tahoes and we're running Explorers, and
We have a difference of opinion between what vehicle we should run. I think the Ford Explorers police package, much like the towns run, but There are instances where the
Bigger.
Tahoe, when you get into the more rural communities and dirt roads and things like that, and the gear that our deputies carry too,
Right.
the Tahoe is a much bigger vehicle. The awarded bid last night that the commissioners did, it was all for Tahoes.
Question for you on the fire EMS or regional fire coordinator position. So I see that it sits within the executive budget line. There's another 55,000 for professional services. I didn't know if they're linked and what it specifically is that additional 55 in that budget for.
That is funding to run firefighter 1 and firefighter 2 classes.
Okay, so that's.
They are, the fire chiefs tell me that it could be upwards of $20,000 a class.
Okay.
And so I've put some seed capital in there. There will be some expectation of towns coming to the table with some funds also, but we just haven't worked out that model. But I put some seed funds in there to get it off the ground.
Yeah. And so, if and when this budget takes shape, what's the timeline? I thought I had seen starting January 2026 for that position, or is that gonna happen as soon as budget becomes official, you move to hire someone?
That position would be probably a July 1st
Okay.
position. If I find that we have some capacity in the current year budget, that I could start the process maybe in May of 2025, a couple of months earlier, we might try to pull that off. But more realistically, it will be July 1st.
Okay, so then it's something that towns don't have to wait until 26 to see. Okay, that's what I'm curious about.
This is going to fall under emergency management.
It's going to be in the executive office first. We're going to try to create the same type of incubator program that we did with public health. We had public health as a division of the executive office, and it allowed us to kind of, the three of us, to huddle around and kind of get some basis
direction.
underneath them, and then when they grew, we kind of, okay, you're a department of your own. I foresee the fire coordinator probably starting off in the executive office and then morphing into the emergency management office. It's probably a better blend down there, but we want to start it first to get the grounding of the position and the program in the executive office.
It will literally be right outside of Jim and my doors.
Is there any, this may be a little bit off topic, but is there any reference books, if you will, if we were to take county government on another state, and compare that to what we have here, home rule and county, and compare the numbers to cost efficiencies and where those might line up? If we just said, okay, let's pick one item, let's take ambulance service and take that away from municipalities and give this to the county. Can we draw some numbers from other states as to, how they run an ambulance service and come up with some cost comparisons? Is that a way to do that?
Right now, no, and I'll explain why. When we did the regional study, an independent contractor out of Florida did the regional study for us. It wasn't up to snuff of what we all wanted. One of the Achilles heels to that study is that right early on, the consultants found that there isn't a consistent approach to data collection between the towns. So that could be EMS runs, that could be fire runs. You could get a snapshot for 19 towns that use the county service through our dispatch facility. But once you get down into Westbrook, they're a different dispatch facility. Once you get to Falmouth and Yarmouth go through Westbrook, but they have their own dispatch facilities. Brunswick's different, Scarborough's different, Portland does, South Portland, Cape Elizabeth. It was apples and oranges, the consultants and there's, some are using this model, some are using this model, some aren't even, the staff aren't spending the time to correctly classify things. So it was not something that was usable data. And one of the recommendations of that report is that there is a consistent method of data collection, because for us to move forward to the next phases of collaboration, you got to know your runs, you got to know your run times to certain areas. You need to know what the end result was. Was the fire truck going to the scene but got called back 3/4 of the way there because it was a false alarm? There's a lot of gaps in the data. And so that's something that the fire coordinator or a subsequent position will be looking at, is the data collection and the uniformity of data collection.
Now, were you thinking on a more macro level when you said that, like in
Like
general?
a county in Michigan.
Yes,
or a county in
yes.
Maine.
Well, no, I was thinking about that. I mean, where that would be an interesting struggle in some ways would, so say, for example, County of Cumberland is 300,000 residents, right? And we know elsewhere in this country, there are plenty of places where there are counties
Right.
where counties do almost everything and the towns have a very minimal role. But then we'd have to find a county, 300 residents, about the same geographic size, about the same residential. Like, you'd kind of have to hunt and peck for those similar ones. Say, for example, a county in the middle of Wyoming that also happened to have 300,000 residents might be the size of the entire state of Maine, right? Similarly, a county with 300,000 residents somewhere on the west coast might be the size of the city of Portland. So it would be an interesting, somebody would have to put some
Hard to
real
find their
effort into
twin out
finding
there.
comparables there. It would be interesting.
I think it could
It would
be
be
done.
wonderful to know what's the county out there that's just
Right,
like
who's our
us
twin?
somewhere in Michigan, right? Yeah.
It's, those kind of numbers would be helpful, to,
Yeah. Yeah, just it would be interesting. Have to go hunting a little bit.
Certainly with Public Works and police, any number of different things that we do that,
Mhm.
And then there's seasons, there's so many nuances.
Right,
I just have to
that's-
think about that. It's,
But the point is, it's a worthwhile effort, because
Master's thesis at Muskie School.
There you go.
and there are counties that resemble us, and I'm sure if we got a consultant at some level. But, fire and EMT is just one aspect with sheriffs, and, I mean, right now, I always wonder, what is the basis for saying, we're at optimum number of staff for sheriffs, or optimum number of staff for police? I'm told that there's a per capita to police ratio that you want to stay within, and, okay, great, but, I mean, it's not as high crime a state as, and so how do you actually get to the point where you say, yeah, we're optimized, or no, we're so understaffed? Even with the fire department, for example, what's a reasonable response time? What's a reasonable number of people who show up at the, and I have residents that tell me, why did the fire truck show up when it was just a slip and fall and somebody needed to be helped off the floor? Maybe there's a county someplace that's doing it better than we are, But I don't think that's the challenge. I think the challenge is for somebody to actually see it through, get the information, and sort of get the right people to the table to agree with, yeah, this is perhaps better than where we are today. That's always the challenge, because we never want to let go of what we have. Which brings me to another question I had about this new role. Do you see it sunsetting after a period of 5-6 years, or is this some, in perpetuity, we now have a fire coordinator? How does this play out over time?
I see it as in perpetuity, because I think if we're talking greater collaboration in 2024, it's only going to get more and more like this, that we're going to have to be heading into more collaboration across boundaries. Maybe fire districts, regional fire stations, or, that's the direction that this region's going in.
I love that thought, but here's the challenge. How do, we hire the right person, right? How do we get that collaboration? Because I think we all have to hang on to what we know. This worked really well yesterday. And how is that position going to be accountable to get us to that collaboration? And perhaps it doesn't take 5, maybe it takes 7 years, but at some point, you either have to say, cut fish or cut bait, right? It's working or it isn't working. If we're talking about incremental, maybe it's just Cumberland and Falmouth, and 5 years later, we take the model and talk to 2 other towns, then I think we're failing in this, and I think we're spending money that, is not. So how do we set an expectation with the fire chiefs of the towns, of the communities in Cumberland County, as well as this person we bring in to say, here's the marching orders for when we have to have something to show the public, and not, the in perpetuity always bothers me, because everything's a brilliant idea, and we should hire, brilliant people every day.
Well, it's only as good, it will only be in perpetuity as long as the fire chiefs are still engaged. It's a very tough department to use as a regional model because of the history of fire departments, and they're usually very independent-minded thinking in terms of, they have mutual aid and all, but it's, it's their turf. So, one of the things that we tried over the last couple of years is, doing that litmus test on how gelled are the fire chiefs and the town managers on this issue. And that's one of the reasons why we had a facilitated strategic planning effort was, all right, we've heard a lot of things in our previous meetings, but let's have this and see what flushes out. It will be a position that will be viable as long as the fire chiefs are engaged and feel it's an appropriate use of their time, and they're using the services being provided by the coordinator. I will say that we are fortunate that we have a roadmap that has been developed. The York County has a fire coordinator. They've had this person for a few years now, and that person has been invaluable to us to say, I've tried this and it really didn't work. I tried this and I've tried this, and now they've finally found the groove that the towns are really excited. So, we can kind of skip a couple of steps, knowing that things didn't work for York County in the towns within York County, and maybe be a little bit more successful quicker here in Cumberland County. But it also takes the right person in the position. You got to have a go-getter. And that's why I want the buy-in of the fire chiefs. I've told them in the meeting, I said, it's not going to be county staff hiring this position. It's going to be fire chiefs hiring this position. We'll fund it, we'll manage it, but it's going to be your choice.
I agree with most of what you say, Jim. The piece where I digress from, there has to be a policy, high-level policy, and I think that's the conversation that Falmouth and Cumberland are trying to reach is, I want to make sure that the fire chiefs understand that it's the council and the managers that are setting policy, and that they are implementing that policy, because I don't want them to think that, this isn't working, we're going to abandon it. I want the understanding, at least from my perspective, is this is a policy that the council and the managers want you to implement. And I want that to come across clear. And so that's important to me.
Basically, it's buy-in from town managers and council as well. So much of where this will be collaboratively successful is if municipalities and their boards and their town manager are also bought in. And
True.
that will be, I think, part of what this role will have to continue to do is
Well,
draw in that buy-in.
I want to make sure those conversations are going on. It's, I don't want to just throw the fire chiefs in the room and say, have at it. I want it to be that the
Jim?
select boards and the councils have directed this.
And I'll just say from the commissioner level is that I think Jim and the entire staff do a great job of giving us updates or presentations before our meeting starts, informational presentations on what's the status of public health office, or what's the status of this coordinator, so that we know who they're working with, what's going on, have there been any deliverables that they can present in front of us, so that we know that we put the investment out there and we're seeing where we are. So I think, updates that we have when we meet are very useful for us as commissioners to hold people accountable and to see what they're doing too. So just like, as you're saying, as a council person or select person, you want to have those informational, updates from your managers. We kind of demand the same thing as commissioners. We want to know, what have we done lately? What's the status update? What's the progress? And usually it comes to us before our agenda with what we're doing as an informational meeting. So I think that's good on that end too. But we're all trying to find the right thing, or see the same thing in terms of deliverables.
What feels a little unusual with this situation is it's not the political bodies that are saying, go out and do this. It's the staff that have said, working with you, have said, well, this is what we need. And to be honest, the political bodies haven't heard about this yet. If I wasn't in this committee, I would not know, just like the previous survey that we did on the fire. And so I love your point about what are the deliverables, and that's what I was trying to get to. What are those deliverables? And you can't have a deliverable without a time frame in mind. And so who is coming to some agreement that this gets done in year 2 and year 4 and year 5? And then how does that come back to the political wing of government that says, okay, and that's part of our policy now? I'll make this plea to county commissioners. Please come to town council meetings and tell us what you're up to, because it's a bit of a black box.
Mm-hmm.
And it shouldn't be. It just should, we should be aware, and I think councils will support some things, or you'll hear some good feedback on whether we think it's a good idea or not. But please come and at least talk about this. And this is a great opportunity. This particular position is a great opportunity to open a lot of doors. And I think you'll find a lot of willing people across this county.
Tim, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so just so I understand, Jim, this coordinator position isn't just going to be working with towns like Cumberland and Falmouth to figure out how they can join their fire departments. It's going to be working throughout the county with towns like Cape Elizabeth. We have no conversation whatsoever on something like this, but we could certainly use some coordination on collaboration, and like you were talking, South Portland has 3 ladder trucks, and Cape goes ahead and buys one. But so it's going to be more than just helping towns kind of join their 2 departments.
Right. And it's really not that micro. This position is going to be a position that is working with 28 towns. They're not going to be any 1 town or 2 towns' personal staff person. That's not the, we had this discussion in the strategic planning exercise. This is not all because we have some energetic fire chiefs that want to do some things, that want to occupy this staff person's time. That's not the goal for this position. This position is up here doing global things that's going to benefit all communities. Offering firefighter 1 training, that's going to be offered to everyone. They're going to establish the schedule. They're going to find the trainers, to find the space. It's not going to be a personal staff person for any 1 or 2 or 3 fire chiefs.
So, and if I could just add one, so what other services, I know Cape had an interest in working with the county to help us with our appraiser.
Yeah.
Are any of those kind of services, because that seems like it'd be something that would be easier for the county to ramp up and get involved with than something even at this higher level. Is there any future kind of hope that some of that kind of service could be provided to a town the size of Cape?
Yeah, we listen to the towns on what their needs are. And a lot of the services that we provide germinate out of conversations, largely between town managers. The unfortunate situation we have with the assessing is that we just had some things that we needed to deal with within our assessing office before we took on another town. We were unable to. If we didn't have that, we would have been very happy to take on Cape Elizabeth. That's our mission in our regional assessing program. But this was just not the right time for us because we have to do some internal review and structure building in the department. We have, I got a call from the former town manager of Cumberland one day, and said, hey, we just lost our general assistants. Opportunity Alliance is getting out of the general assistance world. Can you take this over? And I'm like, all right. Kind of daunting. And there were six communities that were losing their general assistants. And in about a 5-week period of time, we ramped up, we hired a staff person, and we started providing general assistance. We provided to Cape Elizabeth, we provided to Cumberland, New Gloucester, Naples, Casco, Baldwin, and as towns lose their general assistants, they can look our way versus hiring someone else. That's kind of like, we're here for regional services. We're always open. We've kicked the tires on animal control. The sheriff's office is currently doing a study, an internal study on what animal control at the county level would look like. We've talked about building inspection, plumbing inspection, things like that, electrical inspection. Code enforcement is kind of tough because everyone has different codes, books from one town to another, but there's some consistency between building inspection, electrical, and plumbing because it's state codes. So, it really germinates on what the needs of the communities are. We're here to help collaborate and convene a discussion, but we're not here to empire build. And where the towns need us, we will help out.
Any other questions? The last one. So I know much of this budget mentions the increase in subscription models. A lot of things are increasing. Does that increase also mean purchasing of new equipment for any of those subscriptions that are technology-based? So do any of those shifts in technology-based, whether they're subscription or whatever, are they also forcing you to get new equipment? Are they more upgrades of that? Or is it just they're going to a different model of purchasing, so now you have to?
It's the model of purchasing.
Okay. I remember 2 years ago, we talked about upgrades of computer software, which meant upgrades of technology, but I feel like we're past that now. So we've got technology we need in this day and age. Okay.
Every year in the non-debt CIP, you'll see that we contribute, I believe it's about $110,000 towards new hardware, servers, switches, laptops. We have, the IT office has a 5-year rolling replacement list for things. So that's what that $110,000 is. And so that's the only item in the budget.
He's mostly moved away from true standalone servers, more towards virtual servers, so it really truly ends up being constant replacement of laptops more than anything else.
Yeah,
But it's worth mentioning, though, the storage for the body cam footage, I believe the number he gave was 80, what was it, 800 terabytes, I can't remember what.
800.
It's
Yeah,
an
for body
absolutely
cam.
insane amount of data, and it's triple what the entire county stores for everything else it does. It just gives that sense of just what an incredibly large number that's turned into.
80 terabytes,
Yeah.
that's what it was.
80 terabytes, but you'll probably have to go to 800.
Yeah.
Because the depth of
The
which that
richness of
video
it, yeah.
is gonna scale up, only because back in the day, if you couldn't see,
Right.
it's gonna get increasingly more and more refined, so you'll need more and more space to hold that image.
It is interesting also in that by doing this, we actually will enable it to be a better regional tool, because right now the district attorney's office struggles from some to police departments to not. Some police departments, they can get this easily, others not so much. This will be a much more, so it'll help them in actually, well, prosecuting cases.
It will save the towns from having to buy the servers,
Yeah.
because we're holding the data.
And I think you had said it's body cam and taser, is that the Axiom system?
Yes.
Okay. Where the moment that is pulled, that body camera comes on, okay.
The moment the taser's pulled, and there's a gun holster also. Either one of them pulled, the taser automatically goes on. Other than that, the officer is trained to hit their body cam if they're leaving the vehicle.
Yeah. Good, good, good.
What's the retention period on those videos? 3 years, 5 years?
I don't know the answer to that.
Isn't
Mention of
that
what?
what he was saying?
Is it?
Yeah. And they were saying that with the uploads, because it was taking so long with our IT person, it was uploading so long, and this is gonna be like instantaneous, because the judge would say, you've got to redact this period. So if somebody walks past the video and I don't want to see Patty's face, you've got to redact that. And so it was taking hours from LEC, from our, Susie Salzar's position, for her to do all the upload and then go back to that specific instant and cut that out. And now you can do it instantaneous. You can like somehow talk to it and tell it and find it and cut it out. And then the DAs can, it was taking like literally hours to upload the video, and now it's like almost instantaneous. So this is working across the departments. Aaron was, our IT guy was explaining it, and it was phenomenal what the whole capacity was doing for that, so.
I think there are certain statutes of how long you have to hold for certain records. I'm
Is
wondering
it
if
3
there's
years or?
I think it's longer for
Longer.
recorded video for anything.
Oh, it was a certain period of time after the court date, so, you know, it can take a very long time to go to court, and then it's a period of time, I think it was a few years after the court date, yes, so.
You can definitely get that answer from our DA though real fast. I know, I'm sure she knows it.
If there's a backlog, then you're gonna have to hold stuff much longer. Hopefully there will no longer be a backlog, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, then if an appeal comes up or things come up after that, so there's,
Any other questions? All right, two final items before we go. On number 4, we usually have a discussion about bringing in departments. In the past, what we've done is we've brought in specific departments to sort of present their budget. What it does is allow us to sort of hear from the department itself, but also ask questions. That has been up to sort of the discretion of the committee, plus the manager and staff of who we bring in. There will be a question that we'll answer about the next committee meeting, so when they come, we will answer. But I think my first question is, who would we like to talk to in terms of departments? I'll usually say that the 3 big ones we brought in: Sheriff's Office, Cross Insurance, EMA 1 year, and then, what am I forgetting, that we usually have always,
District Attorney.
I know,
Doesn't have public health, no, that's.
no, public health would be a good one to come
Would
in.
be interesting.
That's the one you see the sheriff, so you including the jail, or?
it would be all encompassing under Sheriff Joyce. And he usually presents, last year he came and presented, he missed the year before, but last year he came and presented, additional staff were also available.
Last year he brought his whole staff.
He did, yeah. So, when I say the sheriff, that could also be his staff as well.
I can point you to a page within the budget. It is page 10, once you get past my cover memo here. So it's page 10 within the budget document itself. And the top of page 10 lists out the departments, lists out what their budget's up, and lists out what the percentage increase is. So that could be a rule of thumb for you to take a look at in choosing your departments.
Thank you, appreciate that. So I asked this committee, this group, are there any specific departments we'd like to have come in, ask questions, and sort of present their specific area?
Insurance, healthcare costs, and I'd like to, and general liability, I'd like to have some more data on that, and that might be from Alex.
Sure, so when he was talking those broad categories where the increases were coming in,
Yeah,
that they don't necessarily, they cut across all departments.
right. If we could
But we
get-
can certainly provide you a report on what happened with each of those.
Yeah.
So that property casualty would be one.
Workers' comp.
Workman's comp,
So workers' comp, yep.
Health,
And MMA's,
Yeah.
health insurance.
yep. One of the things that we're doing, or trying to do, is we've had our insurance with an agent for a number of years, and we're trying to get a little bit beyond that agent and look for someone who is, there's a technical term for that, which my wife could describe in detail, but more or less working for the community, for the town. And so I wonder if we can approach that same,
An actuary?
like an internal broker?
yes, yeah. Maybe I can fill in the dots between now and the next time we meet. But my wife spent her career in insurance, and when we've struggled with our workman's comp costs, and she said, you need to get a different player that understands the mods and blah, 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 blah. But what she was really leading up to is that our current professional isn't so much interested in us as he is his own salary. And so it's a different way.
Sometimes independent brokers have different incentives, so
Right.
they do a whole landscape picture of like what's out there, and give you a report back of like,
Right.
I understand, I think I understand what you're saying. Oh, your wife's saying.
I'll pass that on.
So that'd be, basically, you're looking for additional information, insurance, healthcare, workman's comp, property, basically an overarching
Yes.
consideration,
Yep.
Okay.
For this budget this year, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, because when Jim went through that, that's what's been really brutal for us with this budget, is so many of these drivers aren't department-specific this year. They're just, there was a period, I think, of a couple of weeks there where I'm just like, really? Another one? Like,
Our
really?
company's healthcare.
I know when you go out, as my wife says, when you go out to the market, there's only 4 markets to choose from. It's how you go to the market that person can help you.
Also, healthcare is just, post-COVID, I mean, our company went up 10% in our healthcare benefit costs, so
It's,
pretty common. So 11, 10.
We're seeing a lot of towns that don't fall under the Maine Municipal Health Trust.
Right.
They're experiencing somewhere from 15 to 19% increases this year.
Yeah, it's not that unusual, but it's interesting that the county is part of the Maine Municipal, right?
I actually sit on the board.
So did you say that our rates are going up more than some of the other areas in the state? Because that's kind of unusual, because,
No, if everyone under Maine Municipal, the mean is 9% increase. There are some that will be, who have ultra-low mod rates, or loss ratios, will be around 7%, but that's the floor, and the ceiling is 11%. We're the ceiling.
Based on our experiences.
because it usually in an area like Portland, or the greater Portland area, where we've got Maine Health and as compared to other counties where they're smaller hospitals, their costs usually are significantly higher than what the greater Portland areas are. So that surprises me a little bit, but
I think what we can do is we can come back to you with something. We obviously have to be very careful how much detail we get into, showing what's contributed to that loss ratio for us, and where that's coming from.
yeah, but if you look at, just like, you look at a hospital room charge at Maine Health compared to a hospital room charge at Presque Isle, and maybe Presque Isle's under the same plan that we're under, they're dramatically more expensive. So usually you'd see companies in the greater Portland area would be benefiting from being closer to a bigger hospital like this.
Yeah, that doesn't fit
Doesn't
into,
affect-
it doesn't fit into the model of how Maine Municipal posts their rates.
Yeah, because it should be based on claims, you know?
Largely is, it's the loss ratio.
Yeah.
And
So-
we've been
yeah.
running a loss ratio for the last year and a half of about 120 to 130%.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's also based on what your claims are, so, yeah.
Other thoughts on any departments or reports that we want as we head into next meeting? I'd heard public health, I do have it written down. I'd be curious too, public health. Any others?
What do we typically get out of the more detailed presentations in the past?
Want my personal intake or just?
Yeah,
overall?
sure.
Oh, okay. Personally, I think it's good, one, to put a face to the departments that we're sort of overseeing, and then an ability to really ask key questions and allow them to sort of express why we're seeing what we're seeing. But overall, it's been good to sort of hear from the very people that we're overviewing their budget on. It just puts a little personality to it. Many times, really in the COVID era, as has been mentioned, it was important because we were in very volatile times, we felt. So it just felt like more desire to not scrutinize, but peer into what was going on. For me, being new in 2020 and 21, it was good to know who it was who was behind the scenes. So there's a variety of reasons. Those are my personal ones, but if you have other reasons, Bob, that you.
I think it's good for us to have the face-to-face, even if it's just for a cursory question and Q&A. I don't have any specifics to offer you tonight.
That's all right. No, that's all right. In some years, I've had specific questions. Last year with the sheriff's office, I had specifics because of some of the forensic and the vehicles. Because there were 8 vehicles that were there was 9, and it went to 8. So there were instances where I actually had questions. So if you had specific questions for a department, that would be the time to ask them. So.
So just for a status check, I have public health and sheriff.
Yeah.
I also have the insurance lines. So that's where I'm at this point.
I would be intrigued, maybe I'm getting nostalgic, cross insurance. I do, even though the way the account's set up, it really has little bearing on what we might say. It is always interesting, and more of a congratulations to them to always hear the good things that they're doing. So I would be open to bringing in cross insurance as well.
You just want advance notice on some of the shows coming up.
I love to know what's about to happen. It's a fun thing, but it also has impressed me from day one of where they were and now where they're at, so, yeah.
We heard from the director of what, how to say, the lady who directed
Communications.
dispatch.
Yeah.
Melinda?
Yes, I think that I might like to hear from her again.
She's got all kinds of things to report over and above just the budget. Their building has been completely renovated. We just put in a new radio system. We've just outfitted all of our municipalities with digital radios for the handhelds and the cars. And so there's been a lot of work by Melinda and her crew out there.
I think her role is important when we talk about regionalization.
Yeah.
I'd also be interested in somebody from the district attorney's office, seeing what kind of challenges and how her budget might be impacted.
All right, so I have public health, sheriff, cross insurance, dispatch, and the DA's office. Is it called dispatch or is it called communications?
It's called communications.
I was
Everyone else calls it
looking at that, I was
dispatch.
trying to make the discernment
That's why
there.
I'm saying because you won't see dispatch on this list.
Yes, so maybe it's just communications, but
I agree with what Jim said, though. I think for communications, their budget itself doesn't have any major, massive changes to it, but in terms of the projects that she's completed in this past year, there's quite a lot of interesting stuff to talk about there.
And a lot of those projects actually are impacting, I mean, us personally, the municipality, because of the shifts that are happening within the larger dispatch, radios upgrades now are on our budgetary plate. So I too would like to just hear more and get a better understanding for what's coming.
Yeah, we're looking to spend $2 million in Cumberland for a tower, and, you know, I'd like to not spend that money.
The famous hole that you have in your
Right.
community,
Yeah, we can't hear you.
backside of the racetrack.
Where's the tower going? Where is it going?
Where is,
Yeah, where is the tower going to be?
well, it's either gonna go on Range Way, but there's a chance that it could go on the church property on the corner of Tuttle and 88,
Oh, nice.
Oh, well,
which may have some money savings there too, because we can piggyback.
Right, I know.
Oh, wait,
better service.
wait.
It's a
All right.
Falmouth's gonna
5-minute thing on my
appreciate
way to
that, too.
work, but other
Yeah,
than
well,
that-
yes,
Let's
and
definitely
so,
bring communications in.
anyways,
My mother knows where I am on my computer work on how the phone's coming.
She's tracking you?
On how the phone's coming in. She's like, oh, you're in that spot, aren't you? So she'll know where I am, where it drops out. So I'm like, yeah.
If you want to know a service that many towns would appreciate the county getting involved in, it is more towers and finding, you know, the right partners to put them up.
We just actually modified all the towers that were on this summer from one-way communication to two-way communication. So we've just blown up the capacity of our radio system in the towns that are under us.
the thing that still frustrates me, though, is county not being able to transfer a call quickly to a local officer. It's a protocol, and it drives me crazy, you know. I want to talk to a guy in the car, you know.
I see. You know how many times we would get that, though? That would be a unattainable service to be provided.
Yeah. Well, it used to be that way. You get the guy in the car.
You need to talk
say,
to somebody in a car, really?
Wow.
Yeah, I want
Because it was his next door neighbor. No.
What year was that?
I want to talk to the patrolman on duty. Get down to my house, I have a complaint.
All right, so unless we're gonna add, unless we want more, I think public health, sheriff, cross insurance, dispatch, and DA's office, I mean, that's healthy. Right there. So I think those, sounds like a good list.
Who did we leave out?
I mean, we've had facilities come in,
Oh.
we've
I
had.
was kidding, I was kidding.
I mean, well, if there was something specific, but I think much of what's going on this year is pretty standard, straightforward.
There really isn't anything in anyone's budgets that are going to be eye-popping that you're gonna go, have a ton of questions on, because it's just not there.
Yeah.
You know, the sheriff's office has a couple positions. We've talked about fire EMS tonight. But there's nothing really exciting about this budget. But it's exciting to hear the functions. It's an introduction to you all who don't have that day-to-day contact with the county. So, you know, there's that benefit to it.
Can we get a breakdown of energy costs?
Sure.
A comparison of the last couple of years.
You want us,
Building energy?
Fuel cost.
Oh, fuel.
Electric cost, gas cost,
Utilities.
gasoline, diesel.
Okay.
we do have 4 megawatts worth of solar.
We do.
Yeah.
4 megs or
4
what?
megs.
Where is it?
It's unfortunately not in Cumberland County, it's in York County, but it's,
Is that new for this year?
no, that was actually about 2 or 3 years ago. We put it out to bond, not bond, we put it out to bid. One of the requirements was that we were buying into an existing or already licensed through the state of Maine solar farm.
Right.
And
Smart.
we had all these criterias in place, and we had 3 or 4 bids. And the bid came in, the best was in Waterboro. They were building a 6 megawatt solar farm,
Yep.
and we took 4 of it. And we have our jail, we have the Cross Insurance Arena, we have this building.
I thought I asked that question
We
last
did 2
year.
years ago, or 2 years ago, we had made the recommendation we should think about solar. And I think the joke was you wanted to put solar on the jail roof, or one of the roofs that were gonna get fixed, something like that. So
Right,
that could be confusing.
We're-
But you had asked about that 2 years ago.
We're also gonna put solar on our new building roof. We have a federal grant for that, and that will be going on to December's Commissioners' meeting for award.
We're going to meet on that tomorrow, actually.
So where I
Did the
would be
federal
going with
grant
this
cover
is
all of it?
Yeah, sure,
Increasing capacity.
absolutely.
Department of Energy. grant.
Actually, money to spend after the federal tax credits And the federal money from the DOE, I think it came out to be about $70,000, and we got $88,000 from the federal government to do the project.
Now, does all this translate to the new building too?
That's the new building solar.
Oh, that's what, oh, okay, okay.
So the net cost to us is,
Net cost is zero to us. It's all federal money and tax credits.
wow. Is there an urgency to get that money spent?
It's gonna disappear January 20th.
Okay.
Not long.
Okay, time to
Yeah.
do
No
that.
comment?
The deadline was like middle of October, and so we scrambled.
Good.
All right, last thing, we meet again. So, one of the things that coming into this meeting, I think it's been mentioned once before, a couple times, do we want to have an all-day meeting to bring people in? I think the other question is, can all these people come on one day? That would be another scheduling question. But there's been something floated of doing all this in one day, or what we've done in the past is plan 2 days, or however many days it takes. So, I don't know, you all had a thought about scheduling, when's the best time, when is our I think the biggest question is when's our deadline? Because last year, we always came up against a hard deadline, that we had to have our work done. So is there a deadline that we have to have our work done?
Ideally, I think the deadline should be around February 1st. My goal is to get the budget to the commissioners by the 3rd or 4th week of February. And that is largely based on what we learned last year as our first real fiscal year budget going forward. The town managers start scrambling, and we get calls and emails, hey, you got a number yet? You got it, because they're building their budgets in your communities. And so we, this past year, approved it on March 19th, which we kind of gave we felt the commissioners were cool with the budget, so we kind of gave the town managers a little snippet a couple days early. But I think the best model is to try to get it all approved by the end of February, and that keeps the managers happy on building their budgets.
So basically, we have till.
Mid-February, February 1st, you said.
February 1st. So, in terms of, my bigger question is this something you want to try to do all in one meeting, one day throughout the week, or multiple meetings from now until February 1st? Thoughts?
I would prefer monthly meetings myself, instead of trying to.
So a couple of meetings.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's too much to absorb in too short of a time. And this way, if we may say go every 3 weeks or something, and, we have a chance to digest it and come up with different questions, and we may find that we want to have somebody else come in as the conversations are going. That's my.
Okay. Other thoughts? So you're monthly, I mean,
Like monthly, how many meetings would that be?
I would venture 2, but usually what we've done is we've had 2 that are specific on, we've done it 2 ways. 2 that are specific to department and then 1 final, but if we didn't have a lot of departments that come in, we would sometimes have 1 that was specifically for departments, and then the second one was anything hanging over, and then we finalize. So it could be minimum 2, I think maximum 3.
Well, my preference would be to be 1, but
That's fine.
if we can't do,
That's why I'm asking the question.
if we can't do 1, then I'd love to do 2.
Okay.
But I'm open, I'm the new guy on the block, so.
I'll throw this out, if there is an afternoon into the evening meeting that can be done, or when I was in South Portland, we used to do Saturday mornings.
Yes,
And we used to
Saturdays.
do- And that was brutal, because that was like April, and it would be 60 degrees out, and we'd all be looking outdoors.
8 to 5. All right.
But if it was an afternoon into the evening, say, first week or 2 of December, that would allow us to have a second meeting in the middle of January to wrap things up, but it would also allow us a little bit more time for the jail budget, because we really want to continue to look at that jail budget and to see if we can push that number down, get a little bit more time underneath our belts to tweak it, much like we did last year. That's really the only budget that we have our eyes on, and, you know, if that's something that we will deal with in January, finalizing.
But we will have a meeting in December?
Well, I think efficiency purposes, so we don't load everything up and right after the first of the year, if we could get one in December and then one in January would work.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open at every 3 weeks, or every 4 weeks, but I think if we went shot for every 3 weeks, we might, I don't want to have a whole bunch of meetings, but I don't want to shortchange us either, and I'd rather have, if we go every 3 weeks, we might accomplish more.
And that's fine. I think the other question, and we can get down to the granular on the actual day, but are there specific days that are going to work? And are we open to a Saturday? Or do we, let's say Tuesday, do we stick with, I think we were doing Tuesdays last year. They were mostly held on Tuesdays because it fit all of our.
Yeah, it's tough. I have to look up your council schedules and
Tuesdays work all right for me.
Yeah, Tuesdays work for me too.
Tuesdays.
Are you good with Tuesday? This Tuesday?
Yeah, Tuesdays, I mean, most of our council meetings are Mondays, so.
Three of us.
Okay, that sounds good.
Three of us.
I have no
I'm
personal
torn
life, so it
'cause,
doesn't
you know,
matter.
Tuesdays are fine, like I can do Tuesdays. I was toying with the idea, do I want to commit a Saturday and like get this all done, but I don't think any of us
really
do.
hard.
Yeah, I know, that's
You're gonna
why.
be sitting here by yourself.
Oh, okay. So it looks like Tuesdays.
We kind of toy with that every year, and every year we're like,
We say it just to say it out loud, because it just feels
Well,
good.
you know, a Saturday in December is different than Saturday in April, so. But, you know, one thing that we could do to gain some capacity is instead of meeting at 5, if people's schedules allowed you to meet at 2:30 or 3,
Yeah.
and we could bring in sandwiches and we could meet until maybe 7, you could get through. Like I said, when you bring the departments in, there's not a lot of meat in these budgets that is gonna be a lot of haggling about what their budgets look like. It's gonna be more of introducing what they're doing in the budget. So I don't see, outside of the sheriff, because he has the jail and the patrol, any great lengths of any one department. I think you could knock out most of all the
Yeah,
departments
so
if
you
you
have
met
really
it.
just 4 departments.
Yeah,
The
if you-
sheriff's in his own meeting, it's just 4. And the DA would be quick, I think.
I could come down at a 3 o'clock on a,
3 o'clock.
yeah, I'm coming down from West Bath right now, so for the next couple of months I'll be up there, but.
So I would say, if it's Tuesdays, a meeting in December, and a meeting in January, would it be easier if you looked at upcoming Tuesdays and see what is best for all the departments we've talked about? And maybe offline, we can just hone in on which 2 Tuesdays coming up? Because it might be, I mean, we could sit here and finagle, but I don't want to put everybody on the spot. But it really is up to, can the departments actually come? And that'd be the big thing. So we know Tuesdays, we know 1 Tuesday in December and 1 in January. And if I would prefer, yes, if you can, if others can do 3, even 3:30, we'll just extend our time. That's definitely good.
Well, we have Tuesday, the 10th.
We have New Year's Eve, the 31st, if we all wanted to spend that together.
I like that.
just like last year, that's great.
Or Christmas
It's
Eve.
an annual
Oh,
thing.
Christmas Eve is Tuesday too, so it really brings us down to the 3 Tuesdays in December as I'm
So,
looking
yeah,
at this.
we were-
This is on a
The
Wednesday
17th.
this year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I just noticed, so.
Ah.
Let's go the 10th.
I see that the 17th of December, we have a board meeting at the dispatch center, so Melinda would not be available that afternoon. But the 10th looks good.
Okay.
Um,
10th is good for me.
It's the 10th
We
or
spread
the
out
3rd
too much, we
would be
forget
the
what
only
we're here
option.
for.
That's fair enough. We might as well just do it then, yeah.
How does the 3rd work for people also?
The 3rd of,
January.
No, December.
In case-
Oh, it's a
December?
backup.
Yeah, just in case,
the
Trying to
3rd
pin-
doesn't work, wouldn't work for me, but
no? Okay.
I'm out of a webinar at 1 for the main pay
Fame,
leave.
really,
So on
Yeah.
the 10th, would we try to start earlier then, like at 3:30?
I like that idea.
3 o'clock on the 10th?
Would that work.
I'm sure we can get some
I don't
departments.
have
I
my
mean,
calendar, but it should.
honestly, the departments that get to go early will be thrilled.
Yeah, well, fair enough. So if we did the 10th at 3, and then what do you have in January then?
With January, if that would be the second and final, if we're looking at, we'd like to have as much time as possible. What do I have? 21st, we could go the 14th or the 21st.
I personally would leave the 21st. Our budget process will start, so we have a workshop on the 14th. So.
You're in the month of January?
Yeah,
Say it again, Bob. Yeah, 21st on January. Did it work or not work for you?
I don't have my calendar, sadly, so I'll write these dates down.
I can send out an email this evening, just put it on,
That'd be
all your
great.
radar, and we can cross-check our home schedules and everything else.
I'm good for the 10th of December.
Okay, at least I've got that, and then we'll pencil in January 21st. And at the very least, if there was something that we needed to come back for, you'd have the 28th. It
Correct.
had to be quick, so, yeah, let's go with that, see what we can do. But definitely December 10th will be our next meeting.
Kim, you've got your 2 meetings,
I know.
maybe.
I'm gonna, because this has gotta be, you gotta be here, right? You can't Zoom this thing?
Right.
Okay. So anything after the 14th, I'll be needing to come back home from Florida, but I'm happy to do it.
The 14th of
January.
January?
No, December's fine, and the 21st is fine.
Okay.
Oh, it's January 21st is fine?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to come back home, but that's fine.
Do the 28th.
You could, the 14th, that week of the 14th, you couldn't do, right?
I know I have a select board workshop for our budget, but any other of those Tuesdays, so the 7th, 21st, 28th are fine
The
personally
28th,
for me.
which is longer.
What if we deviated away from Tuesdays and go to that Wednesday, the 15th?
Also a budget workshop.
The Thursday.
Well, for Tim, what's the Florida schedule? Are you there for an extended period?
I'm gonna be there, after that week of the 13th, I'm gonna be gone for a couple of weeks there, so. But again, I don't mind coming home for it, so.
No, I think, as, one thing that we did, Alex was one time at a conference, and we beamed him up, and he was the size of a monster up there.
You called me Oz, yes.
So we
maybe-
could Zoom you in to the meeting.
Well, that'd be great.
We would have to, the rules are, we have to have the meeting in person, but if there is a person that has a obstruction or a barrier to making the meeting, they could Zoom in as long as we provide that.
Okay.
I think the first year I was on this committee, we had all Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
Pandemic time?
We did. We actually passed a Zoom policy to allow us to do so, because it was so new. But yeah, everything
You were
was-
out on your back porch.
Yes,
That's right.
had a nice cigar. Making me
gonna
miss
stop
summer
talking.
already.
Yeah,
So we're sticking with the 121.
that's right.
114, yeah, 121.
121.
121.
That'd be great.
Where we'll make sure to
Yeah.
put in the language for the Zoom.
Yeah, is that something we have to pass as a committee, or that is passed?
That is state law.
Okay, so now it's state
Yeah,
law.
it's a revised state law for remote meetings.
Okay.
Back
Good.
from Florida, that just feels like
Yeah,
a lot.
that seems like-
Yeah, we don't, in mid-January, really.
Yeah.
Tim, one condition is that you just have to have a plain white wall behind you.
Yeah.
No beach,
Or
no.
white sand, you know,
No pool in the background, yeah.
I'll make it pretty
no
plain.
afternoon.
Make it very
beverage.
plain.
Maybe a snowy background, maybe.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
If it's snowing in Florida, you should come back.
You're right.
What time would you think on the 21st of January?
We pencil in for our regular time at 5.
5 o'clock?
We need to go earlier. I'm curious how the December 10th meeting will go, honestly. I feel like we could get a lot done.
I agree.
We'll do our regular on the 21st. See
The two variables on that are the elected officials, the sheriff and the district attorney.
So,
I know Jackie will be eager to present though, if schedule allows.
I went to a presentation she's been doing all over the county, restorative justice. She did out in Cape Elizabeth. It was very, very interesting. And she told me what her budget was. So I saw, she's got a small amount in there for restorative justice. I think it's like 40,000.
Yeah.
But what they're able to accomplish with that is pretty amazing. It's quite a program. So
It is.
it's very impressive.
She's really building that program up.
Yeah.
all right, anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor of adjourning? Unanimous, we are out of here, 7:25.
All right. Very good, very good.
Jeff, Dustin, nice to meet you.
So Steve Gordon is